Wednesday, which usually would have been Trump Tuesday, but I'm live today for Wonderland Wednesday. And you know what? Who knew it was Trump Tuesday last night? Donald Trump knew it was Trump Tuesday with his amazing rally in Doral. And today I am not joined by Kristen Davis, who was hit by the hurricane. I am joined by an 80s radio legend, Chris Cordani, who you've probably seen on the show before with Tony Schaefer, joins me live here for Wake Up Patriots. Good morning, Chris.
Well, thanks for having me, Karyn. And by the way, in case anybody is asking, no, Kristen did not transition. I'm just a different Chris.
Well, and you know what's crazy about this is I have a history of doing shows with people named Chris, whether it's Kristen or Chris, and you're actually my second Chris male co-host.
Yeah, interesting. I had a lot of fun. I used to, one thing I enjoyed doing was taking hosts that I'd produced with and putting people with the same names on. So I had a guy named Mike Connors. So I put Mike Connors, the guy who played Mannix, on with him. And Gary Goldberg, I put Gary David Goldberg on with him. That was a lot of fun. So I try to find things like that, just to keep people on their toes.
That's great. We have a lot of fun here on the show. You know, obviously, you know, our good friend Ed Henry. You know, you've done a lot of work with him behind the scenes on different things he's working on. Got to catch him on Newsmax. And if you missed the rally, I want to tell everybody that if you missed the rally yesterday for Trump Tuesday down in Doral, the rally is going to be re-aired on Newsmax today at noon. So you're definitely going to want to catch that. And I think the best line last night, Chris, that came out of that rally was Donald Trump said, "This is going to be too big to be rigged." Is it going to be too big to be rigged? What do you think?
It's never too big to be rigged, and it doesn't have to be rigged the sneaky closing the doors and vote counting way. Remember, these liberals were very happy with the way they fortified the election to the extent that they printed about it and bragged about it in Time magazine shortly afterwards. So anybody that says the 2020 election wasn't, let's just say, adjusted in one way or another, they're lying to your face.
Absolutely. Yeah. I like to use the word manipulated. We like to try to stay out of trouble, you know, and stay in that area where we don't get shut down and get kicked off of Rumble or whatever other platform. So far, they've been very kind to us. So I think that everything here is pretty fair and balanced. You know, being somebody who's a big fan of radio, and I know we've talked music off air a little bit. Did you see NPR's headline this morning? I like this one. They said that the Trump rally, and I don't follow fish, but they said it was like a fish concert, but with more grievance.
Let's put it this way. I've never been to a fish concert, and I never will go to one. So I wouldn't,
Ah,
unless you're thinking of the lead singer of Marillion. That's a different fish, and I'd go to that one. And if it's that kind of concert, I would have enjoyed it.
there you go. I think it's great that the word grievance to me just really speaks volumes. I can't believe that the Democrats don't have a grievance by now with their candidate in Joe Biden, and it seems like some of them might be waking up. I won't call them patriots yet, but they seem to be waking up slowly. But there's still just an overall denial as far as the White House is concerned, and as far as basically everybody around this alleged president. And I'm going to say an alleged president because it's unbelievable that we have somebody in office who could be suffering. Let's say he's just an old man and he's suffering, and the people around him are enabling him. When are they held accountable? I mean, this is unbelievable. There you go, get the picture with the ice cream. And, you know, Donald Trump talked a lot yesterday about, you know, how many vacation days that he spent, about 50% of his term out on vacation, whether it's at the beach. He was talking about how Joe really likes his bathing suit. And, you know, Donald Trump gets up there, and it is in part a stand-up act. He's really funny, and he pokes fun at what's happening. But deep down, he's the only person who's really fighting for the rest of us. And he made that clear again last night. And sometimes you got to put a little comedy and a little levity into such subjects that are so hard that you think our country could be going into World War III. And we're going to get to that. Like, who is going to answer the phone at the White House if we have a nuclear war in the Middle East? It
Oh,
certainly isn't going to be Joe Biden, right?
oh, let's hope it's not. It's probably going to be Jill. Then she's going to wake up Anthony Blinken, who is busy practicing his guitar. That's another story for another day.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's unhinged right now. It's really incredible. And, you know, the New York Post this morning giving Donald Trump a shout out over Donald Trump's shout out of Barron Trump, who has recently turned 18 and who was at last night's rally. This is the first time that Donald Trump has ever publicly called out Barron and made an announcement about him. And he seems to be a very refined young man. I think he may have a future in politics. You think?
I would hope so. He seems like he's he's being groomed to do something quite good, whether it be in politics or in business. But we'll see what happens with him.
Yeah. Well, and Trump went for, in his usual fashion, over an hour last night, and it was blazing hot in Miami. I mean, blazing hot. I mean, you could see him sweating on the podium. You could see how uncomfortable the people were standing in the stands. And I've been to a lot of these rallies. I don't even know how many. I lost count at some point. And a lot of times you're just dealing with the weather. And what I think is amazing is these great patriots that come out, whether it's Miami, whether it's Wyoming, any place that I've been all over this great country, people come out in droves to see this, to see the hope, to see the future that they hope is America very soon here, because our country is slipping faster and faster. And it seems that, Joe Biden's retention and his memory is also slipping faster and faster. And, not that we want to poke fun at that, but there's a lot here that we have to look at. And the seriousness of it is Donald Trump called him a Manchurian candidate not so long ago. That seems to be very fitting based on everything we know right now.
Well, let's put it this way. It fits with the pattern. The Democrat Party from Obama forward has put forth Manchurian candidates. Right now, this man is a man in lieu of a president. He may be a Manchurian candidate. He may be Bernie, but he's still a man in lieu of a real president. At least that's the way we're looking at it here.
Yeah, Bernie. Last night when Donald Trump was giving his speech, I guess I think it was about little after 8 o'clock. The speech actually took place after Joe Biden's bedtime. I want to point that out. And he talked a lot about the border in that speech, which we'll talk more about here today too. And Tom Homan and other people that seem to be along for the ride, which is really good news. I know for our Rumble chat and our audience, because they're big fans of a lot of people that were a part of big change in this country, including the border, which Donald Trump said last night he will seal on day one, that he is going to take action the first day that he is president, and bringing up the fact that there are 150,000 kids missing that are unaccounted for, and that Kamala Harris, who potentially could replace Joe Biden as the candidate, is squarely responsible for those children, being that she was appointed not only as vice president, but as the border czar. So that's big news. And that's something that came out of last night that I think is really optimistic and forward thinking that we can get this problem solved. Because right now, we're in a situation where not only do we have a president in the White House that perhaps has, Parkinson's or dementia or worse, in this Manchurian candidate, but we have Donald Trump saying, day one, I'm going to get to work, Chris.
Again, throwing Kamala Harris at the border was a way of the Biden administration to say, okay, you served your purpose. You checked off a few boxes for Joe Biden. Now, we don't want to hear from you. We're going to push you out of the way, and let's put you in a virtually impossible situation. Since Joe Biden had taken, what, a month plus to screw up the border situation and reverse everything Donald Trump tried to do, he said, well, let's make her the scapegoat and just push her aside. Well, now you have it. This is going to be awful. If she by some chance is the candidate, and believe me, the Democrats are big on the "it's her turn" type of thing. You're going to see the border situation fall right on her lap, and she basically did nothing more than smile, wave, and act like a celebrity.
She has, and she stood by enabling this situation of this old man. I'm going to say it again. I've said it on the show before. I mean, hopefully this doesn't get me shut down, but it is elder trafficking at this point. I've been saying this for years, and the Parkinson's thing, the characteristics that this man has. I am not a doctor. I am not trained in any way in the medical field, but as somebody who has lived life like so many of us in the Rumble chat, and you, Chris, you look at somebody and you start to look at what their symptoms are, and all of a sudden you see that Biden was freezing. Remember when people were putting those memes on him where they had like the jet pack on him because he was standing awkwardly? I think that was a couple of years ago. Now here we are where we see this doctor who's a Parkinson's specialist leaving the White House at least 8 times that we know of. Does this come as no surprise, or have we all seen this all along, and have the Democrats covered it up? it is Kamala Harris just as responsible for trafficking this old man as his family is, whether it's Hunter Biden, who's sitting in on meetings at the White House, or Jill, who stands by his side as he eats ice cream and lovingly takes his hand and leads him out of the way. Who's going to be accountable at the end of the day, Chris? Anybody?
First off, Kamala Harris is going to do nothing. She's the vice president. She's there for show, and that's about it. She's there to evoke emotion every once in a while and introduce the president. That's her job. That's all she does. It is Jill who's been trafficking this old man. It's Jill Biden who loves her power. It's Jill Biden who's pushing him along, and it's Jill Biden who's not protecting him right now. She's the one. This all falls on her lap because the Democrats can find another patsy, or they could have found another patsy and had one ready 2, 3 years ago and propped that person up. The other thing is, as I want to get into this, the what you want to ask is not if Joe Biden has Parkinson's or not if he has mental decline. We saw this from the first campaign on. We saw this from 2020 onward. The real question is why now? Why is the media now allowed to report on this, or why are they jumping on this all of a sudden? I'm going to bring you back to 2008, if you don't mind, Karyn. Humor me
Yeah,
on this one.
please.
2008 was Hillary Clinton's turn to run for president. She is, by all accounts, a horrid human being. She basically was there on the coattails of Bill Clinton. It was her turn. It was the attitude from most of the Democrat, or a lot of the Democrat Party. But some of the factions within, and one very wealthy one named Ted Kennedy, was looking for an alternative. Found one in a very well-spoken Barack Obama, who shot upward. Hillary Clinton was getting fawning press for the entire primary campaign up until the day Ted Kennedy turned around and said, "I'm pulling my money from Hillary Clinton and putting it all behind Barack Obama." From then on, Hillary Clinton was horrible. Hillary Clinton doesn't have the temperament to be president. Hillary Clinton cried. Hillary Clinton did this, this, and this. All of a sudden, the press turned against her. This is what I see now with Joe Biden because they're allowed to or they're instructed to.
Absolutely. Or they finally realize that it's so insanely ridiculous that people are walking away from them in droves and they're losing advertising dollars finally because people aren't supporting them. Even maybe these big globalist companies are walking away because they're embarrassed at just how bad this has gotten. I mean, who knows? But, you brought up Senator Ted Kennedy, and I wanted to mention that because actually last night in Donald Trump's speech, I don't know if you caught it, Chris, but he brought that up and he said 20 years ago, he asked him who the smartest senator was and who the stupidest senator was. And Donald Trump claims that he told him the stupidest was Joe Biden. And here we are 20 years later. So that was a highlight last night. And, the other thing is that Biden keeps claiming, there he is. Biden keeps claiming that he's a better golfer than Trump. I wonder if Ted Kennedy would have weighed in on this here, but a lot of people are weighing in on it. This golf challenge is taking a lot of heat this morning. I guess really what he challenged him to, and I don't know if you play golf, Chris, but or 20 strokes overall, and that he will give $1 million to any charity of Joe Biden's choice. My only question is, what if Joe Biden picks some globalist, crazy George Soros funded charity? What does Donald Trump do then? But I'm sure as a patriot, he would stand up, Chris.
Oh, here's what he would do. If golf match, if in fact this was a globalist charity that Biden tried to pull off, there's no way Biden's going to beat him anyway. What would happen if Biden picked something like the ASPCA or something really important? There would be a big show with this whole thing. Then on camera, Trump, after winning around the last hole, he'd blow the game somehow. He would pretend to blow the game and make it obvious and let Joe Biden, let the old man win one so he can donate that $1 million to charity. And that becomes press. That's what I would do in his situation.
I like it. You're thinking strategically. That sounds like a very Trumpian plan. I like it. Here he is talking about that golf challenge at the rally.
Officially challenging Crooked Joe to an 18-hole golf match right here Underal's Blue Monster, considered one of the greatest tournament golf courses anywhere in the world, one of the great courses of the world. It will be among the most watched sporting events in history, maybe bigger than the Ryder Cup or even the Masters. And I will even give Joe Biden 10 strokes aside. 10 strokes, that's a lot. That means 20 strokes in case you don't play golf. I will give him 10 strokes aside, and if he wins, I will give the charity of his choice, any charity that he wants, $1 million.
$1 million.
There you go.
Actually,
$1 million.
One thing
I
I would
love
have
the way he
liked,
says it.
one thing I would have liked to have seen instead of the golf contest between these two, because it's going to come down to the clown's nose at the end anyway. I would rather see a swimming contest between Leah Thomas and Ted Kennedy, so you can swim faster.
There you go. That would be a really interesting contest. I guarantee your chat's going to be all over that one. You talked about clown noses, and I hate to talk about any woman's appearance, but this KJP character, honestly, the hair gets me every time. The fact that she's up on that podium, and you talked about the media. You were saying that maybe finally, the media is going to call them out. Maybe they're losing advertising dollars. I mean, it certainly seems like Fox has taken a turn, and Peter Doocy called out KGP, and we have that video too, about nuclear war and who's holding the codes? What are they going to do if there's a call after 8 p.m.? How are they going to handle this? And listen to this. She basically says, thanks, everybody, and walks away when pressed. You got to watch this. This is crazy, Chris.
Sharp is before 8 p.m. So say that the Pentagon at some point picks up an incoming nuke. It's 11 p.m. Who do you call? The First Lady? Okay. Are you guys just not, since February, testing President Biden for Parkinson's or for dementia? Because if he gets a bad result, it's all over that day.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, usually these
And
two,
I'm out.
usually those two flirt. I believe those two flirt a lot when they're doing the press conferences. They're back and forth. They're exchange. They smile at each other. It's really cute. I wonder if those two are secretly dating. Yes, I know KJP's supposed to check off a certain box, but you never know. But they'd be a cute couple, and they'd argue a lot. It would be a lot of fun.
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Well, I mean, you heard it here first, folks. I don't even know how to respond to that one. That's going to have the chat going crazy.
That means you're not down with KJP?
Oh, you're not down with KJP. Wow. There you go. See, I knew the 80s music thing was going to come in here at some point today, and there it is. We got it there for sure. This vice president speculation, I think, is really interesting, too. And last night, Donald Trump talked a lot about Marco Rubio, and Marco Rubio actually got up about 2 hours before during the rally and spoke. And, a lot of people speculating, is he a VP pick? A lot of shout outs to Byron Daniels, who's in the crowd from Florida. But the chat that I was in the Newsmax chat, it was all about Mark Robinson, Chris.
Well, because he used to date Mark's mother, and was very happy to date Mrs. Robinson at that one point. But on a serious note, that's an interesting name. The name I've come up with a long time. I said this a while ago, and I still stick by it. It's going to be Doug Burgum. It has to be.
Wow.
His performance in the debate was actually quite good, nondescript, because he never got any real questions. The only guy had a couple of moments to speak. He did well. He is what I would call the anti-Trump. He is Donald Trump. He's with the policies. He is a mild-mannered, quiet guy. He debates calmly. He speaks calmly, and he will appease people in the middle and the conservatives, people who are generally more Republican than Donald, or consider themselves more Republican traditionally than Donald Trump would be. Having said that, it's the pick just like Mike Pence. He's also an executive.
Oh,
he is
see,
not
I knew it. That's
a
where I was
pencil-pushing
going.
legislator. An executive, not a pencil-pushing legislator.
It sounds very reminiscent of Mike Pence. And when you said that and you were starting with it and then you addressed it right away, I'm glad you caught that, because there is comparisons. A lot of people have made the comparisons. This is an obvious comparison. I think a lot of our audience wants to see it be someone who's a little bit edgier. There's no edge there. you really don't know very much about him if you're not from his state. I knew nothing about him. The first time the name was mentioned to me, I had to Google him. And I watch news and consume news every single day, all day long. Do we really want somebody that they bring out of the shadows, or do we want somebody who's willing to take on the swamp with Donald Trump? Or is there some advantage that I'm not seeing?
The advantage is he's lesser known. He is the opposite of Trump. Remember, if Donald Trump brings in Vivek Ramaswamy or J.D. Vance, he's bringing in another Donald Trump. That's what he's doing. He's bringing in a carbon copy of himself. Business guy outside of the political realm, and that's what it is. You're not appeasing somebody else. You have to find a way to get other voters, the people in the middle, those who are deciding whether to vote for Donald Trump or stay home. Those people, you need to get those people to come out. The wild card here would be Nikki Haley. But the thing about the big difference between Donald Trump and Mike Pence, there's only one real difference, is that Doug Burgum, unlike Mike Pence, does not look like Anderson Cooper.
Well, and here we go. It always comes back to the globalists. They just keep going back. Now we're at the Vanderbilts. We're talking about them on this show. I mean, what's next? I mean, J.D. Vance is obviously a favorite of the chat. He's someone who a lot of people see. They don't want another Pence. They don't want somebody. They're afraid of somebody who has anything less than a dominant personality at this point, because the corruption runs so deep. And I have to say, I agree with that, because the more outspoken we need to be, the worse, the worse this gets, the more outspoken we need to be, is my point. The two of them together, powerhouse. J.D. Vance is a little bit younger. He comes from a family that is very relatable. I mean, even if you didn't grow up in poverty, you read his book, Hillbilly Elegy, and you're blown away, and you feel that you could have been there. The way that he illustrates his story and is a storyteller in his own life is incredible. And that realness is what draws people to J.D. Vance. It's what makes him stand out in a sea of people that you said are very much like Trump. He's a little bit different. He's not somebody who comes from a business background necessarily. He's someone who's built his way up. He's worked his way up, but he's worked his way up from the utter brink of poverty. There's something very American by that. Isn't that relatable, Chris? Isn't he a little bit better on that front than, I don't know, Ben?
It's very relatable, and not only is it great on your front. Again, I'm saying it's going to be Burgum because of what Trump needs on the ticket. On the other hand, if the Republicans or Donald Trump are looking at this vice presidency as a way to train the next president, then J.D. Vance is the best choice. The reason why, again, he has experience in politics. He has real world experience. He's been on the bottom. He's been in the middle, and he's been on the top. He knows all three of those perspectives. He has run a state. He has been a senator. He has been around. This is a guy who could be nurtured as the next president. And keep in mind, the vice president is going to be more important in this election than it has in any election in American history.
Oh, that's for sure. Trixie in the mix saying JD is the future. He'll carry us forward. You've got some people in here saying Burgum's a globalist, and he's establishment and making, comparisons against Pence. Annie Chrissy saying, what about Mike Pompeo? Is he even an option? That's one I haven't seen trending really here. Devin Nunes is another name that's here in the chat that's being thrown around. Vance looks like he's probably our fan favorite as far as the Patriots in the chat this morning. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think anybody who's reading the chat is going to see that pretty clearly. But another person chiming in, G. Colmo saying, I think President Trump is going to surprise us and that nobody really knows who it is. Any chance of that, Chris? That it could be somebody like that we're not even thinking about, somebody really off the radar? I don't think it's going to be anybody like an MTG. I don't think he's going to go full on controversial. But could it be someone? Could it be someone who maybe isn't middle of the road? I know you want to bridge that gap. I know where you're going with this. But could it be somebody that we're not expecting, is my point?
Again, that is what he did in 2020. Somebody that you're not expecting. Yep. Nobody talked about Mike Pence as the potential pick for vice president. For all we know, he could pick up He could pick Ivanka as his vice president, which is not going to happen and shouldn't happen because that's a serious nepotism issue. But again, he could surprise us and pull somebody out of the blue. Uh, Another interesting point about the vice presidency, though, is he could go the Biden route, and as I said before, Biden may be a bit out of it for all intents and purposes, but
A
he
bit.
did make one. He did make one.
Just a bit,
Well,
Chris.
back in 2020, he did make one very smart move and a very lucid one. He assured
Uh-huh.
he assured his fellow Democrats and the world that he will never ever be assassinated or offed somehow by picking Kamala Harris as his vice president. Could Donald Trump go that route and pick Lauren Boebert? All right, I'm
Ooh,
joking
Lord.
here. I am
mean,
joking,
that's
but that's the
that's
Kamala route.
far. Yeah,
That's the
and who
Kamala. It's not
knows?
going to happen. I'm only joking.
I mean, Christy Noma's floated and then she blew herself up.
Chrissy Old
You've
Yeller
also
Gnome.
got people saying, yeah, you've also got people saying Tulsi Gabbard, but a lot of people are chat going crazy saying absolutely not. You've
Right.
got other names that people are floating in the chat: General Flynn, Ben Carson, Rand Paul, and get this one. This is a new one that I have not seen before: Alveda King, Chris.
Alveda King would be nice, but
Uh-huh.
again, she is she doesn't have a lot of experience, and right now at this point, maybe something. Oh, Donald Trump is older. He has to pick somebody that can actually succeed him. I like Alveda King. She's a great lady, a great interview, nice person, and she has a good head on her shoulders. But that would be the same thing as bringing in Dennis Prager, somebody who's really smart, but I don't think these guys are prepared to take over a presidency if Donald Trump gets injured or something bad happens to him. And look, the globalists could do whatever, could pull a fast one. I hate to put it this way: the vice president is going to be a very important pick. And it has to be somebody that can immediately succeed him, or if something goes wrong health wise with Donald Trump. And we should have that conversation. Donald Trump was a great president. It was a very good president, and he will continue to do so. But we have to, because of his advanced age, we have to have that conversation about his health and who can take over. Again, you can't. You need somebody who can step in right now. You can't put a Dan
Yeah.
Quayle in there. You can't put Alveda King, and you can't put a commentator in there. I know people
Dan
said
Quayle. I hate to say this, but Ben Bergquist kind of reminds me of Dan Quayle, Chris. A little bit. There's
not
some
the same.
similarities there. Do you have any pictures of Dan Quayle? Can we pull up
Dan
a picture
Quayle.
of Dan Quayle?
Let's see if I can pull up a Dan Quayle picture. I remember watching that.
I don't remember, but in my mind, there's some similarity there, and I don't know if it's how they look. I don't think it is. It's some policy thing. It's something. Something isn't sitting right with me. I just don't know what it is.
Think about
Chat
Dan-
is going crazy. We have about 650 people in there right now chatting,
thing
which is
about-
great. I'm trying
the
to
thing-
follow it.
The thing about Dan Quayle, Karyn, is that the one thing I actually remember about him is there was a pro-am golf tournament on television. For some reason, this just sticks out in my mind, where he was playing in it. And this was on television, and the commentators were just doing slow motion of his swing, talking about how brilliant the man's golf swing was. That was the big deal about Dan Quayle. He could play a mean round of golf.
Ooh, Dan Quayle could play a mean round of golf. We're back to golf again on this show. Does it all come down to golf? Is golf how we're now going to settle our issues in this country? It sounds a lot better than some other things. I mean, there is some lightness there to this whole golf conversation and this Donald Trump $1 million golf challenge. I'm surprised that Dan Quayle also was a golfer. It comes full circle.
Well, again, presidents play golf, and this is one thing that always bothered me. The criticism of, well, the president's on the golf course today. The president's playing golf. And inevitably, the other side's always going to say, well, the president plays too much golf. And I stood by every president, Democrat or Republican, who played golf. And the reason why: you're playing golf, you're doing it in your own country. You need to relax. Every busy person who makes these tough decisions has to have a respite, has to have a place to go. Yet there's always a way to contact that person, especially nowadays, so they can make these important decisions or leave the golf game. But all work and no rest, no relaxation, no play makes a president make stupid decisions. You need the golf games.
There you go. I mean, stupid decisions is the way that this, administration has run since day one. And Anna says, this is a strange conversation. Talk about something that's happening. I mean, I thought we were, Chris. I thought we were talking about what's happening. Was she blown away by Dan Quayle and the throwback that she didn't know what was happening? I don't know, Anna, but we are talking about what's happening because we have a lot happening. And this rally last night being something that I think, again, the media should be talking about more than they are this morning, especially in the fashion that they are, talking about the fact that, it was people airing their grievances, as example on NPR. Of course, isn't everybody airing their grievances under the Biden administration and this Bidenomics at the very least, if you don't like the other policies? And Donald Trump coined a phrase last night. I don't think I've heard him use it before, but maybe he has MAGAnomics, which I think is a great phrase.
He's used that. That was the opposite of
I like
Bidenomics.
it.
MAGAnomics, I like it.
MAGAnomics.
One thing I liked from the debate not the debate, excuse me. Now I just pulled it out. One thing I liked
There
from
you go.
the rally last night was Donald Trump challenged Joe Biden to a man-to-man, no holds barred, no moderator debate, which of course will never happen. But it's funny because that's something I might like to see.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of people asking about Steve Bannon and how he's doing. We'll talk about that tomorrow. I'll get a little update. Also, Kash Patel's name being thrown around for Attorney General in our chat. It seems like he is going to bring a lot of the people that were successful for him back, based on at least last night, him talking about sealing the border on day one, Kamala Harris, and this 150,000 kids that are missing, which I promise tomorrow, even though it's Thursday, me and you are going to be live at 9. We're going to make up for our Tuesday absence, and we're going to be on and we're going to go down a rabbit hole, and we're going to find out what's happening with those kids. But Tom Homan is back. So is that going to be really something that's going to shift? Are we going to see him bring in the good people like Kash Patel? This brings up a lot of interesting things, Chris. Do we think we're going to see a reemergence? And is Donald Trump smart enough to eliminate some of the people that didn't do a good job for him last time?
You mean get rid of the dead wood? First off,
You're
rid of
fired.
That's right. You have to look, again, he brought in a lot of pretty awful globalists. That includes Walrus Face Michael Bolton. I'm sorry, I always call him Michael Bolton, but it's John Bolton.
John Bolton. I
John
saw something
Bolton.
headline about him this morning, and I was like, is he still around?
Yeah, he's still around. But the good thing is, he's the guy that debunked the stupid General Kelly suckers and losers hoax. So I give Bolton at least a point for honesty, but he is a filthy globalist. So let's put that aside. Trump needs to bring in good people. Trump doesn't need to bring in political people, even on the Republican side. They're not all great. You need to bring people who are anti-globalist. You need to bring people who aren't adherent to either party at this point to take a place like to take a position like the Attorney General, and have him bring his own people in as well. Get rid of some of the lower level moles. This is where people get scared of Project 2025. But the idea, you get rid of lower level moles. This way you don't have the Charming Felt. I can't say his real name, can I? On some of these things, Eric Chargarella.
I don't know that I don't know.
YouTube doesn't let us talk about the Brazilian election being fixed. Okay, that's another story.
Yeah, well, and censorship is real. We know this. It is, it's something I don't want to live in fear, but I do try to, be as careful as possible to not trigger anybody, because we know how easily triggered the left is, especially when it's anything that doesn't match their agenda. And when it comes to media, they're looking to silence conservative voices. I mean, this has been an ongoing thing. This is really why we had all the controversy with Donald Trump and this lawfare, is because the minute you open your mouth and you're willing to stand up, they want to take you out, which goes back to, I think, a very interesting point about your VP pick is it better that he picks somebody who's not as much of a target as he is as far as controversy and taking on the globalists? Does he need somebody who's able to walk a little bit more of a line and negotiate? A lot of people would say no. Screw the negotiations. The negotiations are over. You can't deal with terrorists. You don't negotiate with the terrorists. I knew a very smart Italian man at one point in my life who used to say that all the time. You don't negotiate with terrorists. And yet here we are making deals with the devil again and again and again under this current administration. It's got to change dramatically by the time we come to the beginning, maybe day one, when Donald Trump closes the border. Something dramatic has to happen on day one. And that close the border thing, which comes back to Tom Homan, him keeping people around. Is he going to have good people? That's going to be his number one task. I think it's a pretty good one. And the socialism thing is so real. And he's now saying it too. He's saying these are socialists, they're communists. And he's been a little bit more tame in the past, calling out this administration, but he's as frustrated as the rest of us. And you see him becoming louder and prouder about the reality of what he's seen, especially with NATO and everything that's going on right now in the negotiations with foreign countries. He's not afraid to talk about it. And, meanwhile, we have Joe Biden, who, according to the White House, is going to have a big boy press conference. And we got that NATO clip too, which I definitely want to play. I want to first, though, play the big boy press conference, because this, to me, is just mind-boggling that they are standing by. They actually said this. They said this, Chris.
Right, we didn't make this up. This isn't something we just
This
said
is
they
real.
said.
This has actually happened. This is wild.
And it's not even just a KJP thing. This is something that the real guy, Kirby, said.
Conference.
Yep.
Guess a big boy press conference is what we're calling it, and take some questions from y'all.
This week, President Biden will speak to national labor leaders of AFL-CIO, host the NATO summit to
Counting that
show
as
the unprecedented
podium.
strength of our alliance, hold a press conference, a big boy press conference, according to Justin Singh from Bloomberg.
Conference, I guess a big.
Yeah, a big boy press conference. And did you see she pounded she tapped on the podium a few times because it's for emphasis. But I do believe that sometimes Democrats like to, or the base, the leftists, they like to be talked to like they're kindergartners. And this is what it is. Oh, a big boy press conference, or Joe Biden with all those supporters chanting after the debate. Oh, Joe Biden was answered all the questions so well. She's talking like she's talking to third graders. And everybody in the audience goes lie after lie after lie, and in unison. And these are the kind of people you're looking at, which again, Joe Biden is not going to have a real big boy press conference, and I can get into that rabbit hole with you as well.
The fact that they actually said this out loud, and not only said it, but then backed it up. Not only did John Kirby say it, but then KGP backs it up, is unbelievable in itself. And then you think about all this other stuff, and you bring up, Joe Biden talking to him like he's a 3-year-old. Think about all the times that Kamala's gotten on stage and talked about things like the wheels on the bus and big yellow buses, and how much she likes Venn diagrams and all of these ridiculous speeches she's given over the years. My favorite was the one where she talked about space. And recently there was a really funny viral video, maybe I'll play it on one of these shows upcoming, that somebody posted about her 4-year-old speechwriter. And it featured this little boy sort of driving to work, and writing Kamala's speeches. So this is nothing new. This has been going on historically, even before this administration was in the White House, yet somehow they manipulated this election, got what they needed to get. Too big to be rigged is what Donald Trump was hoping for last night at his rally. Too big to be rigged. It's the only way to go. We have to outvote the potential fraud, don't we, Chris?
Yes, we do. But the thing is, and this goes back to the vice presidential pick, you're not trying to convince our audience. Our audience wants a good pick and somebody who can take over for Trump and continue the Trump policies. The left wants what the left wants. You have to convince a small percentage of people who are in the swing states, the people who are basically, and I call them the perpetually alarmed, the people who are worried about everything, who are susceptible to the fear mongering of the left, but get sick and tired of being taxed out of existence by them. You have to walk that line to get those people, that 2 or 3% in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Nevada, Arizona, those people to cross over and vote for your side. The Democrats do it by fear mongering, telling you it's the end of democracy if Donald Trump gets in. The Republicans have to kind of play that and make people fear Donald Trump's bombasticness a lot less. That's why they need a mild-mannered pick as the backup. The other, this is, unfortunately, elections are done on a superficial level, and we have to understand that when it comes to a vice presidential pick. And we're not talking about us. We're talking about those perpetually alarmed, those who are susceptible to media manipulation and fear mongering. Those people have to be convinced to stand not stay home and to get up and vote the Donald Trump way. If the border isn't doing it, if the taxes aren't doing it, if the value of their dollar isn't doing it, there has to be another way, and it has to be the superficial route, and that's where the mild-mannered pick idea goes.
Yeah, it's I mean, the mild-mannered pick idea, I get where it's going and I understand it. Our chat doesn't agree. I'm just going to say our chat does not agree with the mild-mannered thing. They're not on board.
We don't want it. No, I get it, but we're
Right.
not convincing us. We're going to
Yeah.
vote. Right.
Yeah.
I get it. I understand he picks Nikki Haley. Some of us are going to be very upset. But again,
Yeah.
you said he could pick somebody right out of the blue. That he needs to get
knows?
those perpetually alarm people to vote for him. And so do we. It's our job to do the same exact thing, by the way.
But are we converting? So this is what makes me wonder is, so you've got this whole interview, this Biden interview with George Stephanopoulos last week, ABC. If you haven't seen it, I don't know if we have any of that. Oh, did you find that? That is amazing. We're going to definitely have to play that. I love that you're just pulling clips up on the spot on this show. This is new and exciting, Chris. I'm really excited about this. I love this. How long is this video? Can we play this?
It's 3.5 minutes long. I'm not sure if you
It's
want to play the
pretty
whole
long.
thing.
I don't know if we want to play the whole thing. Maybe we just want to bounce into it real quick so the chat will know what I'm talking about. But this
Right.
is the video of the little boy who's Kamala's speechwriter.
Yeah, let's play a little bit of this.
Hi,
Yeah, play a little
I'm
bit.
Oliver Bartholomew, and I'm 16 and a half years old, and I'm
the
the
suit, by the way.
speechwriter for Kamala Harris.
Oh, nice
My
job.
mommy and daddy say if you find a job you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life. Good morning, Frank.
Yeah, hey, Oliver.
And my parents were right. Ever since I was little, I liked words. Writing words is fun, so I made writing words my job. Every politics person has a writer, like me, to make good words for them to say.
Space is exciting. Space, it affects us all. And it connects us all.
I got that idea when I was thinking about space and how big it is. Man, it's big. It's not
I mean, you get the idea. I mean, it's unbelievable. I see you laughing over there because you haven't seen this before. I threw this on you. The whole thing is worth the 3.5 minutes of your life. It really is, because it's that ridiculous.
But it's
She actually
actually-
said that. This is not something that's manufactured. This is actually happening in this country.
But this actually makes it plausible. What does she do? Go on tour at the elementary schools and bounce some ideas off the third graders?
Yes.
This is and I have to tell you, that car is a lot nicer than mine. That kid's gets paid pretty well.
A kid's got a nice
Mercedes.
ride.
Got a Mercedes.
It does. I agree. It was a really nice ride. And, so George Stephanopoulos, he came forward after this ABC interview and basically said that Biden isn't fit, except he didn't say it publicly, and he's now walking it back. Do you know who caught him? He got caught on a hot mic by TMZ of all people. I
TMZ.
love this so much. Everything about this is so amazing. So basically he said, I don't think that he can do another 4 years. And then he tried to step it back afterwards, but he was caught. He said it. These people know, but yet they're willing to lie to the American people. He gets paid enough money at his cushy job on ABC that he doesn't care about the future of this country. You want to talk about elitists? What kind of car do you think he drives to work? Do you think it's nicer than yours, Chris?
I think he drives a well, yeah, I think it's a little nicer than mine. I'll tell you that. No, I think he drives an electric car. Definitely, he has to drive an electric car because he has to show
Like a
off.
Tesla?
And
Yeah,
right,
he's got like a Tesla.
oh yeah, it's a status symbol. I appreciate people who want what they want, but no forcing us to drive these things. That's another story for another day. George Stephanopoulos, when I first heard that he was going to be doing the interview with Joe Biden, I'm thinking, oh, Biden knows these things ahead of time. He's actually talking to the friendly territory of the former mouthpiece. Now, people don't realize this. He runs the news department pretty much over at ABC, and he's the former mouthpiece for the Clintons.
Yeah, no,
That's what
he
people
is.
don't remember. A lot of people don't remember that. A lot of people do. A lot of people don't remember he's this guy. He's not a trusted news source. He was brought in from the Clinton administration as a biased news source, and he's still there doing the same thing. That's why he's walking this back.
Yeah, of course, because who's paying for his private car that shuttles him to work? Trooper was in the chat, and I agree with Trooper that George Stephanopoulos probably does not drive, and that he probably has a black Escalade pick him up to go do his show, and that he probably has not set foot in his own vehicle in many years, although he may or may not own a Tesla, which of course would be just for the example of status if he wasn't driving it. So your assumption also would be correct in that scenario, Chris. You're probably very right about him. But Whoopi Goldberg, and I don't know if we ever found that video. I don't think we did, but Whoopi Goldberg actually basically said that she has poopy days every day and that she has not seen the decline in Joe Biden. And if at the second debate he fails miserably, then she will at that point consider whether or not she's going to vote for him. And again, I don't like The View. I don't like this ladies. I certainly don't like Whoopi Goldberg, but
No.
watching it is utterly ridiculous. It's like watching this 6.5-year-old drive to work to write Kamala Harris's speeches. You watch some of these things sometimes and you think that it's satire, but unfortunately it's not. This woman goes to work and is on television on a major TV show, a top-ranked TV show, at least according to the network that she's on. And I don't even know what she was wearing for this particular episode. It was some sort of like a layered muumuu with sandals and socks. I mean, the woman looks disheveled, ridiculous, but yet is willing to stand there and say that it's acceptable for us to have a president that is even more disheveled than she is because he can't even put a coherent sentence together.
Again, that's Whoopi Goldberg, and she's always kind of dressed like that. I remember her back in the old stand-up days and the old movie days. She doesn't look much different than she does now, just a lot older. But remember, The View is a show where was it Sunny Hostin admitted to voter fraud live on the air, and nothing's going to happen to her. She's the one who said, "Oh, I brought my son's ballot out for him." Yeah, these are people who just get away with saying it, and you know why? Because nobody of any consequence really pays attention to them. We dismiss what they all say. Joy Behar's annoying. That's fine. As a matter of fact, if there weren't internet clips being played by a lot of us, I don't think a lot of people would even have heard what these girls said.
So maybe it was like God's intervention that we lost the clip, Chris. Maybe God intervened and said, don't play that clip. Don't give her any credit for this. Don't show her. I mean, it was God's intervention. And the chat brought up that I did not read Jesus Calling today. And every day on this show, I read the daily devotional from Jesus Calling. So I want to get to that real quick. I know it's late in the show, but it's a good one today. And I think everything that we've talked about makes this even more relevant. So maybe, again, God gave us a reason that we waited. So today is relax in my peaceful presence. Do not bring performance pressures into our sacred space of communion. When you're with someone that you trust completely, feel free to be yourself. This is one of the joys of true friendship. Though I am the Lord of Lords and Kings of King, I also desire to be your intimate friend. When you are tense or pretentious in our relationship, I feel hurt. I know the worst about you, but I always see the best in you. I long for you to trust me enough to be fully yourself with me. When you are real with me, I'm able to bring out the best in you, the very gifts I have planted in your soul. Relax and enjoy our friendship. So beautiful, beautiful way to start this amazing week. And I really would have liked to be with everybody sooner, but Kristen Davis was hit by Hurricane Beryl and was completely knocked out. I think this morning she still has no power. A lot of people in the chat have been asking about our good friend Kristen, and hopefully she'll be back next week. She's got a lot going on. She's got a young son. She's got her mom there in Houston with her, and she was sending me photos. There's trees down. Her neighbors are in peril. There was a lot of flooding, a lot of things that were unexpected. And one of the comments she made to me, and she just moved out of South Florida where we have a lot of hurricanes, is like, I don't know how people live here. So prayers to Kristen getting through the storm with her family, and we'll be happy when we get to see her back, Chris.
Yeah, and again, my heart goes out to all the people out there. There's was a million without power. I believe there were 7 or 8 reported dead from the hurricane. It was really bad in the area, and we're hoping that everybody can kind of recover. A lot of property was destroyed, so send prayers out to people over there. And I'm sure there'll be ways to help out coming out pretty soon. So
yeah, absolutely. And I want to make sure too, I got so sidetracked. We were talking so much that I completely forgot to give an amazing shout out to Colonial Metals today. And I think, everything we've been talking about, whether it's, basically this Bidenflation, the situation that we're in, and the MAGA recovery that's going to happen, we really have to focus on how we're going to protect our future and our families. And, with those, all they're doing, the government at this point, is printing money. And the Colonial Metals Group is really someone who can help you secure your future. And if you call their 800 number, it's 800-805 4034, 1-800-805-4034. You could receive up to $10,000 in free silver right now. So free money, we can all use it, especially in this Biden economy. We got to get this right. And, the only way to do it is to protect your family and have some sort of a resource that isn't going to fluctuate as these globalists become more ingrained in our society. It's bad enough that we're in this administration right now, Chris, but we got to protect our future, don't we?
Yes, we do, and in fact, we have to keep the globalists from putting their dirty hands on everything else. Problem is, we have too many in our administration that have destroyed our currency already. That's another reason why a lot of people are jumping into, or at least looking at, gold and silver, because as the currency fails, gold and silver go upward. And what also matters at this point is the BRICS nations, and they're increasing their reliance and trying to build this gold-backed currency. It's something that we should never have left back in 1971. Incidentally, I'm sure you know that Ron Paul actually ran for office because the U.S. was taken off the gold standard officially and permanently in 1971.
Yeah, a lot of people really, that moment was a moment where a lot of Americans woke up. We have a lot of patriots that are awake in our chat, and they're saying this has been going on. They've been chipping away at this, since very early on, back in the 70s and the 80s. It takes time to infiltrate a free society and introduce communism. But yet it seems that now finally we're here. And Donald Trump, yesterday in this rally kept talking about the fact that if we don't get this election right, if this time we don't win this election, that there's no going back, that there is no future for America, that we've lost our country at that point. It's incredible that we could really be where we are right now in such a short period of time. But at the same time, is it just people that turned their heads and didn't realize what was happening, or didn't realize how quickly it could go sideways? Because some of these clues have been there, especially monetary clues, have been there since, way back 30, 40, 50 years.
And the government knows basically it can just print more money if it wants to spend more money. That's why you're seeing the Joe Biden bribery tour right now, where he's trying to give all sorts of money to, or use taxpayer money to forgive student loans, and trying to pull that in an executive order type of fashion, while also flushing our money down a toilet known as the Ukraine war at this point. And that's at this point, I understand the beginning of the war. We understand what was going on, but there are really no good guys in this war. We're supporting a corrupt nation versus another corrupt nation. You can't win in this one. But you're overspending taxpayer money with this. You're printing it all up, and the cost to the taxpayers is even worse because, thanks to the overprinting of money, inflation is so high that taxpayers, a lot of people have trouble. Having more trouble putting food on the table. The grocery bill does not lie. No matter how neat the stock market looks, the 30 hand-selected Dow stocks look, because that's what they are, hand-selected in a low dollar value economy. It's the grocery bill, the gas bill; those don't lie.
They don't lie. And even for people who maybe, aren't doing it for reasons to be prepared, who wants to invest their money in the stock market at this point? Even if you're not doing it to diversify, it would be a lot better. You'd be a lot better on the rates that gold is returning on right now to go ahead and invest in gold and silver rather than go ahead and put your money in the stock market. It's going to be a much more stable investment at this point. And like you said, when the economy's bad, it does better. So, if you haven't talked to the group yet, call 1-800-805-4034 and find out. It's for you. It's not for you, but you could get $10,000 of free silver. That should be compelling in Biden as America right now, that there is still free money out there that you should go and get your hands on to help you and your family, and have something that's a stable investment, have something that's not going to fluctuate with this globalist economy, as you called it, Chris, because that's exactly what we're in right now.
But there is one more excellent investment, at least for the next 2 or 3 months, and that would
What
be
is it?
investing in ice cream and ice cream trucks, because the consumption of
Absolutely.
ice cream is going to stay very high in the next few months. I'm putting a lot of stock into Nutty Buddies at this point, and new ice cream trucks up until at least December. So that's where we're going here. So it's looking at that gold, silver, and ice cream.
You heard it here first. That's really Maganomics. I like it. That's really smart. You're thinking ahead.
It's
And
Cordanomics.
I
Cordanomics.
like it. I like it.
Meganomics makes sense. Cordanomics is quite convoluted.
Okay. All right. Absolutely. But, they all lead to the same thing, which is you're thriving and you're making money. And, we're supposed to be capitalists here in America. That's what we were founded on, this free economy. We have to get back there. Meanwhile, NATO, this whole NATO thing, I definitely want to play this video, Chris, before we leave, because I can't believe how quickly the show's gone. We're almost out of the show today. We have 3 minutes left. But Biden is addressing NATO. This is why we are not taken seriously on the world stage. This is unbelievable. He's actually talking. I don't even know what the man says. You got to watch the sign language interpreter and her response to what he says about somebody's wife. Watch this. This is yesterday.
This alliance is one of the most consequential periods in its history. I realize, you're talking to your wife, I personally asked you to extend your service. Forgive me.
Say what?
Secretary, you've got.
I was talking to your wife. Is that what he said?
Yes.
Sea of Mud Apparel, good friend of the show. I want to give them a shout out. Thank you for posting this. I mean, it made me uncomfortable. I listened to it 3 or 4 times and I couldn't come to grips with what he was saying. And it made no sense in the context of the larger video. I want to say I just clipped a second of that. Sea of Mud actually has more on their Instagram if you want to watch the whole thing, but it makes no sense. He just bumbles and stumbles, as he does as bumbling Biden, into this comment about somebody's wife.
Oh, that's what he does.
NATO.
And to your point, I wasn't even listening, because when you mentioned the sign language interpreter, I was watching her, and I have a feeling she didn't really understand gibberish to sign to gibberish at this point. So she just probably gave up like this, or did the jazz hands just to, as the hippies do. I don't know what. Personally, keep clapping. If it triggers anxiety among morons, then just trigger their anxiety. None of this jazz hands garbage. All right. But the fact is, that's what that's what she was doing. It must be how to translate Bidenese, I guess.
Absolutely. They had a former sign language interpreter that was called out for doing fake sign language. I don't know if you remember that story.
That was funny.
But there was one. So, maybe it's the same thing. But I saw the look of confusion on that woman's face as he stumbled through that sentence. And, nobody really realizes what he's saying anymore. Are the Democrats waking up? Who knows? We're going to be here another day tomorrow talking about that subject, I'm sure, yet again, but also going down the rabbit hole. And we're going to talk specifically about this 150,000 children that are missing that Donald Trump brought up in the rally yesterday, that are a direct result of this open border that he says he's going to seal on day 1. And he's blaming who? Vice President Kamala Harris. So tomorrow, let's go down that rabbit hole. It'll be a Thursday. It's a little day late, but it's not $1 short, because in Trump's economy, we would have that extra $1, Chris.
I think so. And yes, that was the design before. Blame it on Kamala. This way, when you run again, blame it on her. And this way you can say, well, I wouldn't want her to run for president. She can't even handle the border.
Well, that's for sure. But you know what? We can handle the show, and you did a great job producing today. So I'm so glad that you were able to join me. I look forward to tomorrow. Big shout out to Kristen Davis. Get through this hurricane unscathed. And Patriots, we will be back here with you live tomorrow, 9 a.m. on Rumble. See you then.